Senate GOP Conference Chairman, Republican Senator from South Dakota, John Thune, joins us now to weigh in. Senator, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Shannon, nice to be with you.
Okay, so let's start where we are today with what we know about this deal with Mexico. We know it doesn't involve Canada at this point. You say you're encouraged, but as always, the details matter.
Sure, the details do matter, but what we're seeing is encouraging. And one of the things, coming from a farm state, we rely heavily on trade. I mean, we've got to export to survive, and so we've been watching as this thing emerges very carefully, the particulars of it. And it looks like, and what we've said all along on ag at least, is do no harm. And I think on this agreement, from what I've seen so far, we're encouraged by what we're seeing. But I think there are a couple of key areas that our members were concerned about. One was the sunset, the other had to do with rules of origin, and it seems like at least the administration has listened to those concerns and has tried as best they can to address them. And I think that it's a good start. We'll see, obviously, when they get fill in all the details, but yeah, we feel good about where it is.
Okay, so one of your GOP colleagues in the Senate, Senator Ben Sasse, also a heavy ag state for him. He says there's reason to worry that this might be a step backward from NAFTA for American families, especially on fundamental issues of presumed expiration of the deal, which you mentioned, and empowering government bureaucrats rather than markets to determine the components in cars and other goods. What would worry you about this? Because Congress is going to have a role.
They are. I mean, ultimately, we'll have to vote to approve it. We'll get it up or down at some point, an opportunity to vote on it. But I would say that for Republicans, those will be the two key issues, the ones that you mentioned, the ones that Senator Sasse identified. But so how they, in the end, fine-tune that provision that deals with sunset. And originally they had like a 5-year sunset, which everybody would have said no way. And I think that they have moved away from that. There's like a 6-year review in it now. And then also on rules of origin, which was the other issue. I think those are the 2 points that there's probably going to be the most contention about. And so as we work through this, our members are going to want to obviously weigh in as they get the finer points put together.
What do you make about the president calling this the U.S.-Mexico trade agreement? He's not calling it NAFTA, but a lot of folks are saying, well, listen, if you're going to do this and you're going to add Canada. And by the way, one of the former Canadian trade negotiators, Larry Herman, said today, I think it's appalling that Canada has been kept at arm's length from these talks over the past number of weeks. There's no way a NAFTA agreement can be reached for signature by the end of this month. It's not going to happen. Now, tonight we got late word from the White House that says the president spoke with Prime Minister Trudeau today. They talked about U.S.-Canada trade and agreed to continue their conversations.
Well, and it sounds like the Canadians are starting to engage, and I think that's what the administration's been hoping would happen, because at least at this point it has been sort of a bilateral discussion between the U.S. and Mexico. And I think the fact that Canada is now feeling pressured is probably a good thing, because we need them at the table. It should be it'd be nice to make it a North American agreement, whether it's called NAFTA. And I'm guessing the president will call it something else because he likes
U.S.-Mexico-Canada
he's got his own branding.
Trade agreement.
Right.
Well, we'll see. I want to ask you, too, on another topic, but about Iran flexing its muscles of the Strait of Hormuz. The Secretary of State says today they don't control it. It's an international waterway. Do you have concerns?
Right. Of course we do, and we watch very carefully what happens in Iran. And obviously, us having the president withdrawing from the Iranian nuclear deal is something that I think has put additional pressure on Iran. And as they try to navigate now in this new world where they've got sanctions snapped back into place from the U.S. and seeing what our European allies are going to do in the end on this, but there needs to be maximum pressure on Iran. And obviously, when they flex their muscles like that, they do it because they needed to do that for internal consumption.
Well, and they've taken us to court as well. That's a whole other segment we'll be talking about.
Right.
But I noticed that you have on some special cufflinks today.
Yeah.
And I know that your family and that you obviously have had special connections with the McCains over the years.
Well, when I got to the Senate in January 2005, I immediately got on the Armed Services Committee, and I got an opportunity to travel a number of times with Senator McCain. And it wasn't until I read his book, Faith of My Fathers, and I looked at some of these places and times and how they sort of synced up with my dad's experience in World War II. And sure enough, my dad, who received the Distinguished Flying Cross as a naval aviator during World War II, had his DFC signed by Admiral John McCain, Senator McCain's grandfather. So when we found that out, there was kind of a bond that developed there, and he was terrific about every time he'd see me, he said, let's call your dad, we got to call your dad. But he was that way. He took a real personal interest in people, tried to develop and mentor young people as we came in, and so having the opportunity not only to travel abroad with him, but also travel the entire state of Iowa when he was running for president and other places around the country was a real experience, because he was a uniquely gifted individual with so much passion, and who really did believe profoundly that you want to serve causes that are greater than yourself.
And by the way, these say McCain 2008, is it?
Yeah, I think that's right. These were presidential from that election, and I wish he'd have won.
A lot of memories. All right.